If you work as a product manager, developer, or any other role in a tech company, you're probably already using Gen AI apps or considering using one very soon because of the hype around it. This video is about the 3 security weaknesses in Gen AI applications these days that makes most companies nervous, especially tech companies who deal with a lot of data. First one, and probably the most important one, don't leave your keys at the door. If AI is a vehicle that's going to skyrocket your business, then data is the fuel that's going to push it forward. Number one worry that most companies, especially tech companies, have is the data leakage, because data is at the heart of what these companies have established. You take Facebook, LinkedIn, Airbnb, any big tech company out there, they all rely on data as their way of standing out in the crowd. So make sure you're conscious about what kind of data that you're putting into these LLM models, which also means you need to understand the LLM model being used. Like we saw this with DeepSeek recently, that it was actually sending data back to a data center in China, which may or may not be complying to the legal requirements you have for the data that you're working with. So make sure you don't put the data that is sensitive in these LLM models. If you have to, consider some kind of masking tokenization so the actual data has been de-identified. It cannot recognize that there's actually a driving license number in there, which you should not have put into it. Second one is don't jump into the ocean without a lifeguard in the vicinity. Now, the coding AI assistant models have been really popular. It's an ocean out there, and you have to pick the right one that works for you. You probably have team members or developers who are actively using one or more of these coding assistants out there. Now, the reality of this is that as much as we are in this text to something era, and more on that in another video, it is still not at that stage where you can trust the data that comes with it. You have to verify it, which means that if you have developers who are junior or probably don't have a lot of experience, I would not give the coding assistant to them, because relying on the code that is being produced by a coding assistant at this point in time is not at the level that you would want from your organization. Also, depending on what kind of language you're using in your organization, they might not even be a coding assistant. So if you find an open source version for someone who claims can do it, you probably want to go back to step number 1 and verify the LLM model behind it. My advice, if you're using something like a coding AI assistant, make sure you limit access of that only to senior developers who have done this hard yard before, who have been a lifeguard before, and who can actually verify that the code being produced is not exposing them to any weaknesses, especially if the application is going to be on the internet. Verify the code output being produced by the coding assistant before you copy paste it into your production pipeline. Number 3, secure your studio. Chances are if you are building an AI application, whether it's to produce code or to crunch data, you use some kind of an AI studio or AI building software, which means you want to make sure that what you're using is not vulnerable. There were 2 examples recently. One was around Lightning AI, which is a very popular tool for data scientists. About 250 million people use it. That had a vulnerability that was resolved recently. Now, there might be a lot more. DeepSeek, which is another open source LLM model that has the R1 model identified with some security vulnerabilities as well. So knowing security weakness of the tool that you're using to build your AI, the actual LLM model that you're using would be the right thing to do before you start diving into the AI tech. Now, using all this information, you can be building a secure AI foundation for all the amazing work you're going to do in the tech companies you're working for, which is as simple as educating the team about what kind of data to put in and what kind of LLM models are there that they should be able to use and should not be using, implementing security controls to make sure you're aware of any security vulnerabilities that may be there in the LLM model or the AI studio that you're using. Thirdly, and this is probably the most important one, keep an eye out. There's a lot happening in AI. Keep an eye out for what are some of the security announcements coming out from these companies. My hope is after watching this video, you're able to use the benefits of Gen AI without worrying about security. Now, if you want to continue making smarter decisions with AI so you can reap all the benefits that Gen AI has to offer, I'll leave another video over here for you to become more AI native if you're not already.